Greetings, everyone, and welcome to Create Yourself Imagery, Intimacy, Innovation, a place where people from all walks of life in various backgrounds come to share their transformative personal and professional stories of restoration, confidence, clarity, and empowerment. I'm Joyce Kiles, your global speaker and life and leadership thriving coach. And if you're ready to transition, transform, and thrive, this is the podcast for you. Today, I have the opportunity to interview for our part two with a previous guest who shared some great insights with us about her journey professionally and personally so. And I'm so glad that she has made time to come back and share with us again because we had such a great time. The first time we were like in the middle of podcast, we were like, we definitely have to do a podcast too for this. So here is part two. For those of you who missed the first episode, then I'm going to encourage you to go back and learn more about today's guest. So I'm going to just read a little bit of her bio and tell you a little bit about her if you're catching this for the first time. And again, I'm just going to encourage you go back and learn more about who she is and what she's doing. So let me just jump right on in. Kalyn Fahie is a survivor of domestic violence and sexual assault and an advocate who works to end domestic and sexual violence. She founded the nonprofit organization Sisters Acquiring Financial Empowerment, or SAFE, in April 2006. She is a speaker, a coach, an advocate. She is a sought after national speaker at the local, state, and national conference level. She was featured in an article on domestic violence written by the White House in Essence magazine and has received multiple honors and awards, including the 2009 National Network to End Domestic Violence's Spirit of Advocacy Award. She does a lot. She is involved with so many different activities. I have had the opportunity to work with her professionally. I guess it was about a year or so ago now, but it's so great to have her back in this space to talk about a different thing. So, without further ado, let me present to some and introduce to others none other than Kalyn Fahie. Kalyn, welcome back to the show.
Thank you so much for having me back on and having me today. I definitely appreciate you. We had a great time last time. So thank you again.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And we said, like maybe midway into the conversation, we were going to have to do a part two. So we're going to jump right on into this part two. When you were on the show the first time, one of the things that you mentioned was that this was the 20th anniversary of your nonprofit and that you started it in Detroit. So I wanted to pick up from there to talk a bit about how you transitioned from Detroit to St. Thomas and bring us up to speed for the audience members who may be listening to you for the first time. So this is kind of a twofold thing. Um, Tell us a little bit about Safe because yeah, this is 20th anniversary for you, so that's a huge milestone. And then again, just how you transitioned from Detroit, where you started this, over to St. Thomas. So for the next few minutes, the floor is yours.
That's a big story you're asking. All right. This story dates back to 1998. So in 1998, which was only 4 years after the Violence Against Women Act went into law. So I always like to preface that with, at this time, this was only 4 years after it was a federal offense to abuse the person that you say you love. And so in 1998, I was in a 7.5 year relationship with my oldest daughter's father. Labor Day weekend of that year, he assaulted me to the point that he shattered my left eye socket. And I don't even think you know about this, Joyce. He shattered my left eye
No.
socket, and I have a titanium implant that replaces all the bone under my eye. And it was really hard, is an understatement, for me to recover in a lot of different ways, mentally, emotionally, physically, to be able to see again. So all the different ways that you could think I struggle with, but the way that hadn't been explored in the movement as far as assisting people was economically. And so I'm economically devastated at this point because he had left with his income. I'm now with my daughter trying to navigate my health journey and to get stronger, getting therapy and services for me and my daughter. My daughter was only 4 years old at the time. And it was really, really hard. And so when I went to the programs and was like, I need money, like I can't work, I can't see, my doctor won't give me a return to work note. Um, they did not have the resources and they actually kind of treated me like I was trying to get over and like I was just trying to do something. So from that experience, what I ended up doing was I made the decision to quit my job at the hospital and get a new job. Now, in 1998, the job market was a lot better than it is now. So, because I thought a new jobs don't ask for a return work or health fitness.
Right, right.
So I got a new job and I started working in the payroll department. And I at the time I had double vision, which is why the doctor wouldn't release me to go back to work at the hospital. My eyes were not the muscles around my eyes were injured, and so I both of my eyeballs weren't looking at the same thing at the same time. And so I got this job in the payroll department and messed up so many people's checks, child. And so they called me in the office and they were like, maybe
Mm,
we started you off too aggressively. And I'm too scared to tell them I didn't feel safe. Like, this is what the situation is. This is what I'm going
right,
through.
right.
And so I just kind of ate it and they didn't fire me. They demoted me and they said, well, we'll keep you at the same pay. And that's all I cared about at that time. But as I got stronger and better at the work and physically stronger and mentally stronger, I ended up really enjoying the work. And so I ended up getting a scholarship for survivors of domestic violence to return to school that still exists today. I highly recommend the scholarship program. And it's called the Women's Independent Scholarship Program. You can visit their website at wispinc.org. I highly recommend them. So I went back to school and ended up getting my bachelor's degree and master's degree in business administration with a concentration in human resource management. So anyway, so I go back to school and I'm working now at a hospital, at a hospital in the HMO in Detroit, doing payroll, doing all the aspects of human resources. And a woman comes into the office and I'm writing her up because of low productivity. Her supervisor wanted her written up. And she says to me, now this is like 6 years after my situation. So it took a while for me to get back on my feet. This didn't happen, overnight. I really want to preface that. So this is
Understood.
like 6 years later. The woman, and now at this point, my wounds are healed. I can see. I've always worn glasses, so I can see, things are, um, I'm working, I got a good job. And so now I'm calling this woman to write her up. And she said, well, what you done? She said, I know this would never have happened to you, but this is the situation of abuse that happened to me. And I said, girl,
Wow,
please. What?
wow.
Yeah. Let's see how we can help you. And so when she left, I sat back in my chair and like, why would she think it could never happen to me? Because I had this job, because I wear suits every day. Why do you think it couldn't happen to me? Because I don't look like the scars that and the things that I've been through.
Right, right.
So, and that is nothing but the grace of God, let me tell you. So, went home that night. I was sitting on the edge of my bed. I had a pad of paper and a pen and was like, God just had me write safe, 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 sisters acquiring financial empowerment, and started writing this plan for an economic justice organization. I didn't know that was the words at the time, but I looked at the plan and was like, wow, this is really great. Maybe one day when I become like Oprah, I'll fund this and somebody else can run it because I had no desire to run a nonprofit organization at that
I
time.
understand.
I had
Mm,
no desire. So that was probably 2005. And then April 2006, there's a whole lot more story, girl. But I'm also writing my book, writing my memoir. So y'all get all the details and the tea, but I don't want to drag the story out. But it's a whole lot in between that. But in April of 2006, I had bought a house. I was laid off. I'm a single mama too. And I had tried to start a business because God had said when you get laid off, you're going to start your own business. So I was like, okay, Lord. So I started my own business. And I'm sitting in the living room of this new house. Don't know how, I can't pay the mortgage. I'm crying. I'm upset. I'm angry. I'm mad. And I'm praying all at the same time. It was
Mhm.
insanity. And
Yes.
I'm pointing my fingers up at God, like I'm really pointing, like I'm angry. I said, you told me to buy this house and you told me to start my own business. And he said, I didn't tell you which business to start. And I said,
Ooh.
my bad,
Mm.
my bad. I immediately put down the for-profit, picked up the nonprofit, didn't know what the heck I was doing. I had volunteered in the community, started calling community contacts. This is what I'm doing. I pulled the board together, not of friends, but of people that have specific skills and talents. I would always say my mom was on my board. I said, you wouldn't have made the board if you wasn't an HR specialist, like if you didn't have a certain set of skills. And we went from there. I started specifically helping survivors of domestic violence around how to economically recover from abuse. So how to seek work if you're being stalked, how to get housing safely. The safety plan was integrated within the program. It wasn't an afterthought. And it was really specific to women in the Detroit area. And so then the housing crisis hit about 2009-ish. And programs around the country were then inundated with survivors who were asking about economic justice, how to recover from economic abuse,
Right,
how
right.
to, economically recover. And they had no tools or resources, but they heard about this Black girl in Detroit who was helping these women in Detroit of all places, to become financially self-sufficient. Wait a minute. We need to call her. We need her to come speak to our team, help us create toolkits. We want her to speak as a keynote. We need her to help us develop a program. And that's how I started to be known nationally for the work that I do. And so I was doing huge events in Detroit. We would have 900 plus people come out every year for a few free community event that I would host called Safe's
Oh,
Health
that's
and Wealth Expo.
beautiful. Mm.
And the Health and Wealth Expo was really looking at health and economics and domestic violence. So the integration of all three, and really how can we support people in these areas in our community, raise awareness around domestic violence, provide tangible resources. So we would have like 60 plus community partners with vendor tables. We had 60 plus workshops going on concurrently. We had yoga, we had things for the children. We offered bags, 1,000 bags of groceries. We partnered with the local food bank. Whole Foods would provide us with 1,000 lunches to pass out. We did breakfast. Because my thing was, I don't know how people are showing up. I don't know if they ate this morning. So I need to, I would always look at the mass loss law. So let's get their basic needs. How are we going to expect them to sit into a workshop to learn about these things if they stomach growling? They can't pay attention.
Absolutely. That's right.
So those type of things were very important to me. And I was just talking to someone about this recently, that when you give an event, people feel your heart. And if you just throw some stuff together and you're like, well, that's good enough for them, that's, people feel that, and my heart was that real transformation would happen during these events. So we would do those large scale events. We would partner with all kind of community partners. I mean, it was just an amazing thing. In addition to our weekly programming that we did directly with survivors of domestic violence in groups, and then our one-on-one work with them. And so one of the things that we would start with is, when we worked with the survivors directly, would be goal setting and visioning. So before we can even talk about you want a job. Why do you want a job? What are you trying to achieve? Are you trying to get your children out of the child welfare system because they were taken from you because of domestic violence? Are you trying to become, housing? You want to be stable, have stable housing. Are you trying to go back to school? Like, what is it that you want to do short term? Short-term goal might be, I just want to take a bath and brush my teeth every day and clear my mind, and whatever your goal is. So looking at very short-term goals, I need to open up a checking account. I need to get an ID, to bigger goals like housing, for example. And so that would be how we start. And, so that could be overwhelming sometimes, because sometimes it's like, wow, this is the first time I have an opportunity to create my own path, to guide my direction. What do I want to do? Somebody isn't telling me what I should be doing. I have the opportunity and the autonomy, and I'm empowered to make this decision myself. And so that was really why we were successful, because our program was led by them. We weren't like, oh, you should do this, or what is it you want to do? What are you comfortable with doing? How can we support you? And we're going to throw all the resources and knowledge we have to supporting you to reach your goal. And as a result, we have multiple survivors that started businesses. We had the big conference that I was telling you about. The day before, we had a smaller conference. So it was actually a weekend event. So
Okay.
on the Friday, it would be a conference for 100 survivors of domestic violence who were interested in entrepreneurship. And we would really approach it from a micro entrepreneurship kind of lens, and then talk about scaling up and growing from there, but how to start with nothing. And
Mhm.
from those conferences, there are at least 15 survivors that I know of specifically that have sustainable businesses, including one that started a domestic violence organization that now has $1 million in grants that they're
Oh, that
managing.
is, oh
So
my goodness, that's beautiful.
I
You,
know. So
mm,
I'm really, really, really happy about the legacy of the organization, the work that we
yes.
did. The work actually is still continuing in Detroit, with my daughter is the lead of that. So the program is still going. We have partnerships with other organizations in Detroit, like Transformation 123, House of Cadence, some other organizations. And so I'm really proud that the work is going. In 2000, and so that's the phase one of the organization. That was just really high level of say. But if anybody wants to look it up, learn more about it, we have is a YouTube channel with a lot of information. You can even see the video of the events and survivor testimonies and different things that the organization accomplished. So just look up Sisters Acquiring Financial Empowerment in Detroit and check it out. My name was Risker. My last name was Risker, but now it's Foy. And so you'll see a lot of the articles and stuff with my previous name in there. But
Now, Kalyn, just a
yeah,
second. You said your former last name was Risker.
yes.
And now look at that. I'm sure you have thought about that. You were a person who took risks and
Yeah.
reaping the reward. Yeah, just that full circle. I always say, God does things in a particular way, in a particular order, and he uses us if we allow him to,
Yes.
for his purpose, even down to your name. Just I
I
just
mean,
thought,
that's
wow,
facts. And I would
yeah.
say that, I'm like, my name is Risker, and it still is. So I'll say my middle name is Risker now. It's now my middle name. So, but yeah, and
I
so
hear that.
that's where God developed me and my personality. So much so that gets into this part B of your question, is how did this girl end up in the Virgin Islands?
Yes,
So
yes.
in 2013, in November of 2013, my mother passed unexpectedly. The hospital put someone in her room that had whooping cough. She ended up getting pneumonia, passed a
Oh
week later.
no, so
Now
sorry.
she had cancer and stuff, and people were thought that, oh well, she just, she was sick. No, she wasn't. She was like about to get on her feet. And
Mm-hmm.
that was just supposed to be an outpatient procedure to help her to walk again. And I was devastated. And so,
Mm.
fortunately, I had a team that kind of picked up safe and kept it going. But I checked out from November to now. This is like January, 2 weeks after my mom's funeral. My best friend, who's in the middle of a divorce, she's depressed. She came to live with me, her kids, my kids, the cat. I'm depressed. It was the house of depression.
Mm.
January of that year,
Mm.
I'm still in the same funk. I'm like walking around with the same house coat on that I can't even tell you publicly how many days that thing was on. And I'm just looking crazy. My best
Mhm.
friend comes in the house and she says, "We need to go on a vacation." And it was like the gears in my head started slowly turning. Like imagine gears with no grease, like they were just like creaking. And my brain was like trying to process. And I said, okay, maybe, a quick trip, like a vacation or something. And she said, "I'm not talking about vacation. You're talking about," she said, I said like a quick trip, like to Vegas. And she said, "I'm not talking about a quick trip. I'm talking about a vacation, like an island or something."
Okay.
I said, "Okay." A friend of ours said that rich people go on vacation, poor people go on trips. So that's why she was making the difference between the trip and vacation.
Yes, I have heard that before too.
So she said, "I'm talking about a vacation, like an island." I'm like, okay. 10 days later, she was working for the airlines at the time. She booked us some buddy passes, and we were in St. Thomas. Um, I met my husband that night. The first night we were there in a restaurant.
Oh, wow.
And I
Okay.
met him that first night, and I was not interested at all. Because I was just like, my whole point of going was to cry, eat, cry, sleep, cry, lay on the beach. That was my whole agenda. And I ended up meeting him the first night. And and of course, this is a much longer story as well. But he mailed me an engagement ring. This was January. He mailed me an engagement ring March on my birthday.
Oh, my goodness.
And that was
Wow.
2014. Later on that year, we had a huge engagement party on the beach. People flew in for it. Like it was amazing. It was so nice that people actually thought that was our wedding.
Okay.
And then we would travel back and forth to see each other. And we got married August 2015. So this year will be our 10th wedding anniversary. So we got married in 2015. And it was an amazing wedding. It was in Detroit. So all his family flew up to Detroit for the wedding. I had Grammy artist Carl Carlton, who sung the song "She's a Bad Mama Jamma,"
Uh-huh.
to
Uh-huh.
perform
Uh-huh.
"She's a Bad Mama Jamma" as I walked down the aisle.
Oh, my
So
goodness. I love it.
it was an amazing, amazing time. And then I struggled with moving here. And so we had a lot of conversations about who was going to move where and what we were going to do. Do we move to a whole new place? Like, what is the plan? And I sat down and made a list. And this is back to me. And, I'm very passionate about goal setting and visioning and stuff. So I made a list, I put a line down the middle of the list. What are the pros of me
Mhm.
staying and cons? And
Mhm.
what are the pros of me and cons of me going? All the
Right.
reasons for me to stay in Detroit were because of other people. All of the reasons for
Mm.
me to leave were for
Mm.
myself.
Okay.
This was the very first time in my entire life at this point that I made a decision for myself
That's powerful.
to leave.
It's powerful.
And
Mm.
people tried to guilt me. Ooh, like, what about the survivors? What about the survivors?
I
You need
already
to stay
know.
in Detroit. And
Hmm.
I'm like, first of all, I have ran that organization for 15 years unpaid. So if y'all cared about the survivors, where was the donations? I'm just saying,
Let
like,
us be clear. Yes,
I was
yes. Facts.
struggling, but
Facts.
made it happen. When I tell you, it was nobody would know that program was unfunded all that time, but I made it happen. And but I was like, there's survivors globally. Like my long big term dream was to do international work, to do work with the UN. And so this is you having your own dream and your own vision. And then, so I moved. People did try to make me feel guilty about it. Some people felt it was a fad. Some people felt I just freaked out because my mom passed and I'm tripping or I'm in a midlife crisis. I don't know how they, but so we got married. I went back to Detroit for a year. And so people were really like, oh, this not happening. This was just fairy tale or whatever. But I went back in a year so that my daughter could finish the 8th grade of a school she had been to since the 3rd grade. She graduated as the salutatorian. It would be different if she wasn't even a good student, but let
Okay.
her finish that out so she could start high school fresh in St. Thomas.
Right,
Uh,
right, right.
I, I had a house that I had to take care of, a business that I wanted to make sure was, stable. I wanted to make sure that safe was stable. I just didn't want to abandon it before I left. So I was able to wrap up all of those things and then ended up having 2 health challenges in the process. So that all worked out. So I did all of that, and then I moved on our anniversary, August 15th of 2016 to St. Thomas, and I have been here ever since. So we've been married for 10 years. I've been here for 9 years. And this it's just really been an amazing experience, even though we went through 2 categories, 5 hurricanes, the same hurricane you probably heard of that hit Puerto Rico, hit St. Thomas, hit the Virgin Islands with more intensity and force, but we just didn't get the publicity about it because Puerto Rico has 3 million residents and we only have 100,000 residents between all three, 150,000 residents, something like that between all 3 islands. So much smaller. So that we didn't get the publicity, but we had bought our house 3 months before the hurricane and we ended up losing our our roof. So it was really so things still happen, but I was diagnosed with breast cancer, stage 2, had to get chemo, radiation therapy, but he was really supportive and through the whole process. So I'm just happy to be here, happy to find a good life partner, and just happy everything is still moving forward.
All right. So I want to thank you, Kalyn, for continuing on. For some reason, the technology is great when it works. And so I fell off, but I got at least an opportunity to get back on and hear you continue on with what you were sharing. So I just want to ask you to just continue right on in with how you have been able to continue on with your work being in the Virgin Islands. So I think when you left off, you were talking about the hurricane. So I will just let the floor return back to you.
Thank you. Yeah, even, life challenges and whatnot. I'm happy to be here. I'm glad to have the opportunity to live in St. Thomas in the U.S. Virgin Islands. I'm just grateful to be on this earth to still be able to do what I do. But the time that I've lived here, I actually had the opportunity to do a few things. One, I was volunteering for a church that I was going to here with their women's ministry, and they wanted me to do a domestic violence committee. So I was able to do work with other faith-based institutions, specifically around domestic violence. And from that, the um, administrator who was over the region wanted to expand, the first lady expand to provide training to different churches across the Caribbean. So this is Trinidad, Tobago, Barbados, Jamaica,
Mm.
etc., the British Virgin Islands. So I did this 3-day virtual training with all of these islands to activate these churches to be able to support survivors in their communities. Some of these island nations don't have a Violence Against Women Act in place. They don't have domestic violence laws. And so how can they support survivors? So that was really my dream, realized this is what I wanted to be doing. I wanted to, of course, my heart is in Detroit to help survivors in Detroit, but beyond that, how far can my reach go?
Right,
And
right.
so then after the hurricane, so this is 2018, after we had started to rebuild and get back on our feet, I ended up getting a job with the Virgin Islands Domestic Violence and Sexual Assault Coalition, which is their state or territory coalition, but it was actually council was the name, DVSAC. So I worked for there, and I was over the faith-based committee, as well as the legal program, providing TA and really going out to government, faith-based community programs, nonprofits, other domestic violence providers, and helping them to increase their capacity to do their work. And so that really did training and one-on-one support and things of that nature. And that really excited me. Like, I really enjoyed doing that work, because I feel like my reach is far. If I can help the people that are directly impacting the people and the everyday people even. So if you worked at a reception area somewhere at a government building and someone was to walk up with the issue, how would you respond? What can you do? How can you support? How can you not victim blame? That interaction can make a huge difference in someone's life. So it doesn't have to be, I'm a domestic violence advocate. It's just you having the knowledge to be empowered to help and support people and not re-traumatize them or re-victimize them. So
Right.
I worked there, and then during the time that I got my breast cancer, um, was dealing with that, I got an opportunity to work for a national domestic violence resource center where I work now. And that was just an amazing opportunity. They were super, super supportive of me during the time that I got chemo and radiation therapy and everything. And during that time, I was building out the structure for a grant program where we ended up granting 20 domestic violence programs with $275,000 to support their work in their communities. And I'm still working with those programs to this day to increase their capacity, as well as providing TA and training on a national level and different other programs that we have. So I'm really, really happy that I'm able to do that work. That organization is based out of Washington, D.C., and that I'm able to do it virtually and provide the services so I can still, remain where I'm at and
Right.
be very, very impactful in the work. So, I think the thing with that is to not limit yourself by your location, especially nowadays. So don't limit yourself in any way, but to decide, like, this is what I see for my life. This is what I want. This is the opportunity. This might sound crazy, but this is what I want to see. And you would be surprised how God will align that desire, and it could be the desire he put in your heart, but for you to actually believe it and trust in him and to move forward in it, and that you could realize it.
Yes, yes, yes. I love that, and I love the way that you framed that and brought it on together with not limiting yourself. In one of the things that when we pray every morning, and we pray and include that very thing, and we say, we ask him to grant us the desires of our hearts in
Mhm.
accordance to his will, his plan, and his purpose for our individual and collective lives. So we pray for that understanding of and desire to have those desires to be fulfilled, but we want to do it in a purposeful way that we know that it is truly his will and his way and his plan. Because as you have said and shared, as you know from your own testimony, when you walk in his purpose and his plan, and you just surrender and, okay, well, what would you have me to do? The results are so much better. You feel you truly come alive. You see your purpose coming to fruition in ways that may not make sense to other people in the beginning, but you trusted the process. And
Yeah.
just hearing you sharing all the things that you have shared, and me seeing glimpses of my own journey, thinking about what you shared, the housing crisis and what was happening in 2009. I left my abuser in 2008. And the following year, I lost my home, lost my job. I have talked about this on a number of occasions and what that looked like for me, because I also left my abuser. So trying to transition at that time in my life, Yeah, it was difficult trying to talk to me when we hungry, trying to figure out the
Hmm.
main priorities for me at that time was where are we going to live and how am I going to be sustainable for myself and for my children. So I can really, really, really appreciate the work that you were doing then and you're still doing and making economic justice a huge part of the work and making it a focal point because I don't think that people truly understand. In fact, I know that there are people that don't, because I have talked with individuals who work in corporate spaces, and I remember very clearly a few months back, a gentleman was telling me that he had never heard of financial abuse. He didn't know that economic abuse was even a thing. And so for you to be sharing and doing the work and established it the way that you have, and for so long, I just personally and professionally applaud you, commend you. Um, I thank you as a person who was someone who had gone through that same cycle and having to ask myself those same questions, and hearing my own voice, my own thoughts for the first time. And like you, I got married in August too. And I found, my husband found me, as I say, in a very different and unique kind of way as well. We got married August of 2014. So you're coming into your 10, we're coming into our 11. So
Awesome.
congratulations.
Same to you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. I do love my husband dearly and continue to be appreciative of his support. And I know that you have a similar support system as well. Otherwise, we could not do the work that we do. I think we would still do it anyway, but it
Mhm.
is definitely, definitely helpful when you have partners in your life that are supportive and engaging and allow, the freedom and the opportunity for us to just be who we are as women and as survivors and advocates and activists in these spaces and not they're not the men that we have encountered in our prior lives. I'll say it that way.
Yes, yes.
So, as we are wrapping up our broadcast for today, I understand that you have a couple of events coming up, and I really want to make sure that our listeners learn about them and how they can best support you.
Yes. So first, I would like to mention that I did recently launch a book, actually on my birthday, the Dreams and Visions Workbook: Plan, Reflect, Take Action with Faith and Purpose. And this book is a combination of all my work and years in regards to goal setting, planning, even self care, how to build community, and so really taking you from one step to the other on how you can support your own self. And it reflects on faith. So there's prayers, there's scripture reference, there's some personal testimonies in there to encourage you. So I would encourage you to pick up my book, and it's on sale on Amazon and Ingram Spark. You could even get a digital version if you were iPad girly. So you could visit my website at kalynfahie.com. That's KALYNFAHIE.com. And so with the book, I'm now also hosting some events because this time of the year, people, have had their goals and did their vision boards in January. Now you're not thinking about that stuff no more in June and July. And
Mhm.
so I'm hosting a series of events called the Mid-Year Reset. So the first one I'm hosting in person at the Reading Room Bookstore in St. Thomas on June 28th. So if you happen to be in the Virgin Islands, come on through. It's a free event. Even if you don't have the book, I'm providing some worksheets that we're going to do an interactive exercise and work through those. If you can't, if you can't make it to the Virgin Islands right now, which I still would highly recommend for a vacation or to check it out,
Yes.
um, I'm going to host a virtual version of the same event. The virtual version is the mid-year reset, and it'll be on Zoom July 29th at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and that's going to be free as well. Both events will have door prizes. I try to make it lively. It's going to be interactive, and at the end of the day, participants will leave with something tangible. Like, I'm not a person who just wants to inspire and get people happy. I want to help people to move towards action, and so whatever I could do for that. And I'll soon be launching coaching as well. And so I'm giving you a preview of that. At the event, I'm going to launch coaching opportunities if people really want to do a deep dive, and how I can support them with that. So those are some things that I got going on, but definitely I would encourage your listening audience to check out my website, KalynFahie.com. Check me out on social media. Most social media, I'm listed as Miss Kalyn, so MSKALYN. I'm even TikToking. I'm everywhere.
I love it. I love it. And I am so glad that you are pushing forward with all of these amazing events to go along with the book. And so that's why I shared with all of you. If you have not listened to the first podcast, our part one, please make sure that you go back and do so, because she really, I mean, she just gave you a snippet here in this particular podcast, but she really did a deeper dive in our first podcast. You will not be disappointed. Make sure that you go to the website, learn more about who she is, what she's doing. Take advantage of one or both of these events that she has coming up. If you can get over to the Virgin Islands, or if you're already there, I strongly, highly encourage you to take advantage. Have I personally not been over there yet? But I want to go. It is on my list of places to visit. We had the opportunity to go over to Grenada last year, so spending some time in the West Indies was beautiful, and have done a couple of other islands, but never been to the Virgin Islands. So I'm looking forward to that. If I can't make it for this particular event, I still plan to come, preferably and prayerfully before this year is out. And it would be great to connect with you over in your space and in your environment, and take advantage of some island time and see what you're doing firsthand. But again, if you all can't make it over to the Virgin Islands, she is given an opportunity for you to connect with her online. And so all of the information, I always share it under the information that we give for the podcast. So each guest always has their information about their bio and how to connect. So if you didn't happen to catch it while we were talking, it is certainly written out in print. So the podcast is shown everywhere or heard everywhere that podcasts are listened and aired. So you will be able to connect with her. Kalyn, before we wrap up, is there any other points that you would like to make, something that you would like to leave with our audience as we wrap up?
I just really want to leave with, it's never too late. It's never too late to pivot. It's okay if you want to pivot. Sometimes you can have a goal or a dream and it's not serving you. It doesn't make you happy. It doesn't bring you joy. It's not productive. It's not fruitful. It's okay to pivot, pray about it and move forward, and don't let the voices of others um hold you back from everything that you have in store for you in your future. I'm excited for you all, and I hope that you connect with me soon.
All right, I love it. It's okay to pivot. That is what Create Yourself is all about. So Kalyn brought it on home in exactly the way that I desired, and that was to ensure that you all understand that creating yourself, you can do it at any age. So let's continue to transition, transform, and thrive together. Kalyn, thank you so much for taking time out of your very busy schedule to join us today. You were fabulous as always. Looking forward to staying connected with you.
Thank you for having me, and you have a blessed day.
You do the same. And to all of you, my guests, thank you so much for tuning in. And until next time, please remember to go forward. And as I said, create the life you desire and deserve. And remember that you can do it at any age. Let's continue to transition, transform, and thrive together.